I think for some, this offseason thus far has been very disappointing. For others, we saw it coming. And I would say, even then, some of it seems to be a little bit much. So, Neil and I will break it all down next. All right. Welcome back to Last Second Sports, where we are giving you our take down to the last second. I got my guy, So Real, Sunil in the building. What's up, Sunil?
Yeah, man. It's been a minute. A lot of stuff's going on in my personal life, but a lot of stuff's also going on in the NFL, man. So that's what we're here to talk about.
Absolutely, brother. Well, we won't get into what's going on in your personal life, but I will say I'm very proud of you, very happy for you. You got some awesome things cooking. And I got to say this too. Been watching a little bit. See, this is the funny thing. When you're not on the show, like I get to see your social media. I get a vibe of where you're at.
Yeah.
Really surprised with the turn that Sunil might be making here. He's going a little bit heel. I think a lot of 49er fans think you've turned heel on us. You've had your what? People are talking about John Cena turning heel. I don't watch wrestling, but I've heard it a lot. I feel like you're on your John Cena arc.
So the name has always been So Real, Sunil.
That's
and
true.
When
Yeah.
facts change, reality changes, and I'm just reading tea leaves. I'm always keeping it real. If you're on the opposite end of me, you're not keeping it real, and that's just basically where it's at.
Oh man, I love it. Well, listen, I'm going to quickly go through everything that's happened this offseason because there has been a lot, Sunil. So just so that we're all on the same page, the 49ers traded Deebo Samuel. They cut Kyle Juszczyk. They cut Leonard Floyd. That surprised me. They cut Javon Hargrave. They cut Malik Collins. Players that left in free agency: Dre Greenlaw, Tarvarius Ward, Talanoa Hufanga, Aaron Banks, Elijah Mitchell, Jalen Moore, Joshua Dobbs. Incoming players: Luke Farrell, Richie Grant, Luke Gifford, Demarcus Robinson, Jason Pinnock, Trey Brown was the most recent add today. They also brought back Curtis Robinson, Patrick Taylor, Jordan Mason. They tendered him. They brought back Kevin Givens, and Joey Bosa got away. Mm-hmm. Raheem Mostert is rumored to possibly be coming back. And they've got about $85 million in dead cap, which equals to 15 Brock Purdy. So with all of that going on, what is there a move that like really stands out to you, whether it's a guy that left, whether it's a guy that they brought in? Like, what really like catches your eye? Was there anything that surprised you? Like, just give me some quick thoughts on what's happened.
Yeah, I mean, I guess overall what's surprising, and my dog's going crazy right now, what's the fact that they're doing it, right? So this is something that eventually, like, you have to take a good report. You have to take like a report card on your team, right? And ultimately it's like, are we going to win a Super Bowl or are we not going to win a Super Bowl? If we're not going to win a Super Bowl, then you have to do, okay, what is the best route to get us to win a Super Bowl? And in previous years, the team had said, hey, we're right there, so let us go, quote unquote, all in. Let's get the big name free agent. Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's re-sign our players. Let's restructure contracts. Let's do all of this to be able to go all in, because we feel like we could win it with just these tertiary changes, right?
Mm-hmm.
People have debated, the fan base, hey, we can't win with this team. We can win with this team, but whatever. The team decided, hey, we think we could win. We're going to go all in. They took a report card of their team this offseason. They're like, look, we're old, we're expensive. The teams that are winning the Super Bowl are potentially better than us. We don't think that we could win it as is right now. So we have to pay the bill eventually for the choices that we made the past 6 years. Let's pay it. And I don't think a lot of people felt like the team had, I guess, the gumption to actually do it, and they're doing it. And some people are that don't that I think there's people that look at the team like, yo, you should always be trying to win a Super Bowl, which you should be, but not everybody is capable of winning it in the exact year. Sometimes it takes a year, 2 years of a game plan to be able to build back up to that. And I think that the 49ers, and I agree with them, rightfully so. Hey, we're not a Super Bowl team right now. Let's pay the bill that we have to pay so that we give ourselves an opportunity in the next 2-3 years to get right back up to where we were the last 6 years.
Yeah, man, I kind of agree with you. Like for me, I remember we were doing the four-man front, and I said the 49ers won't win a playoff game until the 2027 season. And my reasoning behind that was I knew if they went this route that they could get back quicker. They could get back possibly in 2026. But I didn't think they would do it. Like, I'm looking at how the 49ers have done things. I'm like, they're going to continue to hang on. Like Juice will be around and Debo, and they're going to do the whole thing. And there's no way that they got the guts to actually do this thing the way that I would prefer them to. So 2027, they win a playoff game. I'm looking at it now and I'm going for sure next year, 2026. Like they could, if they have a good draft this year and a good draft next year, man, they could be right back in the thick of things, competing for a legit Super Bowl. Like I believe that. So it is crazy that they're actually doing it. That is a major surprise.
Who do you think,
I would.
who do you think in the organization made the choice? Because why we're surprised, I think, is because of the narratives that have been created about the arrogance of Kyle Shanahan, the ineptitude about John Lynch, the cheapness of Perot. Like that there isn't a, I guess, their feet aren't in reality, right? There's a lot of criticism about this regime and their abilities or lack thereof abilities. But and I know you're pretty fair with your criticism, but I don't think you thought that the people that are in the front office had the sense to do this. So who do you think is making this decision?
I do. I really think it's Jed York. I think Jed York just said enough's enough, man. Like, get rid of it. Get rid of all this fat. Like, because we hear that there were people in the front office that weren't happy about the Ayuk deal and the Debo deal and all these other things. Well, I mean, I highly doubt that person was Kyle, because Kyle was the one that supposedly ran to stop them from trading Brandon Ayuk. So it wasn't him. Honestly, like, I don't know. I could be wrong. I truly don't look at John Lynch and think he's like calling the shots on personnel. I just don't. And some of it's Kyle, but not all of it. I think that they've got those two guys that came in and filled in for Adam Peters. I think they're the shot callers when it comes to like, these are the players that you want to pick. And John's just kind of like a figurehead. I think he's the media guy. He's the figurehead. Of course, he's the one that, first one to pick up the phone and call these prospects when they're drafted. And, he'll be in the room negotiating and stuff like that. But ultimately, I genuinely I don't know that John Lynch does a lot of the day-to-day player stuff. I maybe he does, and I'm wrong. I just don't feel like he does. And so I think it comes down to Jed York. Jed York's like, no, we're either that or his parents. We're done. We're done paying these guys. We spent way too much money. Let's take a year off. And I think a lot of people are looking at it like, oh, I don't want I don't want the owner to save money. I could care less if the owner saves money. But to me, it's not about that. I don't believe that they're just going to tighten the purse strings forever. I genuinely look at this as a 1-year thing. I think next year they're going to spend a ton. When they have the money, when they have the salary cap back again, they're going to spend a ton of money because they're going to have to rebuild this team, make it competitive again. And that's going to take spending money. And I think that they're going to be fully ready to do that. I just think right now they know this isn't a Super Bowl ready team. There's no point in dropping all this money. And 1 year is a long time in the NFL. We've learned this, where they've spent money on big name guys, and then a year later, they're not producing at the same level. So instead of spending a bunch of money now on guys that may or may not produce next year. Let's just wait till next offseason when you've got the salary cap aligned. You spend all the money that you want to and make another run at this thing. So whether it's price conscious or what, I don't know, but to me, it's the right move. Like, I just
Sure.
think it's
I
the right
mean,
move.
you can't win Super Bowls with a bunch of bad contracts on the books,
No.
right? And so you have to eventually get the bad contracts off, and it's not pretty. But I do want to push back. I think that John Lynch has a lot more say in personnel decisions than people want to give credit to. Obviously, me being a Kyle Shanahan homer, nobody's going to believe this, but I think that Kyle Shanahan doesn't have as much say as people think, which is proven by the fact that he has to run upstairs to save guys like Trent and Ayuk, because they don't just listen to what he says until it's like last minute type of thing. But I think it is a smart move. I think, like, ultimately they have to get younger. We've been saying this, David and you have been saying it on your show for years now. The 49ers are one of the oldest teams. They have to get younger. The only way you get younger is get rid of older players and replenish them with rookies or draft picks. And this is what that process looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. This is what that process looks like. 100% right about that. Tommy says with fake Brenda as center, we won't run shiitake. Right? And Stevo says, Tommy, shutty. Nice. Way to go back and forth through the super chat. Very, very nice of you guys. Okay. You talked a little bit about Shanahan. We talked a little bit about Lynch and what their roles might be. But one thing that I find really interesting, and this is where I'm like, oh man, like Sunil is being so real right now on Twitter. I love this. What is this offseason telling you about Lynch and Shanahan?
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't know if it's telling me this, but if I'm an owner and I want to attract a coach or a GM to come to my organization, right? The top ones, right? I want whatever, whomever those top guys are. What is the situation that I need my team to look like for it to be attractive, right? Um, obviously having a history there, which the 49ers definitely have, is a selling point. But if I'm a GM or I'm a coach, I want the opportunity to have a lot of cap space, right? To be able to build a team in the vision that I have. And I want to be able to have the draft assets to be able to do that. And I want to be able to either have a quarterback that is definitely a franchise quarterback, somebody that I like, or the opportunity to pick my own, right? And so when I'm looking at the moves that are being made right now, 2026, the 49ers are going to have a lot of cap space. They're not trading away any of their draft picks, so they're going to have all of their draft picks. They still haven't signed Purdy to this big deal or whatever. So right now the quarterback situation is open. It's not anything that you've invested a ton of money into. So if I am kind of like, hey, I'm not sure if I want to continue with who I have right now, these are the moves that I'd be making to assure myself that I have a kind of like destination that people would want to come to. So I don't know if Kyle Shanahan's or John Lynch's job is necessarily on the hot seat. I do think that they definitely have to be warmed up. I personally, for all the things I love about Kyle Shanahan, I've always mentioned to you, Jesse, you missed the playoffs twice. You got to go. I've always been clear about that. They missed it last year. So if they miss it again this year, but my guess would be, regardless of what happens this year, I think one or both of them are potentially gone next season.
Yeah, it's interesting because I know that you had posted this like a week ago, that it seemed like they were kind of setting up for a pivot plan. And a lot of people gave you pushback. They're like, oh, there's no way. I mean, if they brought in Robert Saleh and, that just, it can't be. But the way that I see it is a little bit opposite, meaning if and I'm not saying this happened, by the way. I mean, this is total just, I'm just throwing out thoughts. Um, but if the owner did at any point come to Kyle and be like, this is your last year, like you better win or else. Well, the owner is gonna say that, but then it's up to the coach to do everything he can to keep his job. And the best way you do that is by hiring the best staff possible. He's not going to go, all right, I give up. I guess I'm going to lose and get fired next year. So, Robert, see you later. And no, he's going to try to surround himself with the best staff possible to try to do everything he can to keep his job. So I felt like that theory that people were throwing at you didn't really add up. I felt like it's the exact opposite. But I also I genuinely don't think that Jed York has like put this ultimatum on Kyle. But what he's done, whether it's intentional or not, is he has definitely set up this team to pivot off of Kyle and or John if they see fit after this year. Not that that's the idea, not that that's something he wants to do or is planning on doing or even thinking about right now. But man, if for some reason he does move off of them, all of this cap space and all of those draft picks are going to be very, very attractive to whoever's coming in. And so I do find it very, very interesting. And I do think there's a part of it where he's like, "Hey, I'm not planning on firing you or anything like that, but dude, you're an elite coach, supposedly. I
Mhm.
believe in you as that, and I pay you a bunch of money to be that. You've brought in Robert Saleh, like we have the coaching staff. Like you guys are going to have to coach your butt off a little bit this year. You're not going to have the rosters that you've had in the past, but the expectations are not changing. You've got to find a way to win. So go do that. Go be the coach that I've hired you to be."
Yeah, and I mean, I know some people in the chat are like, "Oh, Sunil's off of Kyle. It must be." No, I personally think that there's a lot of positives moving forward for the 49ers. They are
Yeah.
playing last place schedule. Kyle Shanahan feasts on last place schedules. So I think that the 49ers are actually going to make the playoffs, and I think Kyle Shanahan's job is going to be safe. But my tweet was that I think that Jed at least is keeping his options open versus what has been in previous years, Jesse. What we've seen is like all in. Like we know for a fact, there's no doubt that Kyle Shanahan's coming back. At least
Mhm.
he's doing what he needs to do to give himself options if this year doesn't go as planned.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's brilliant. Dave says, Jesse, I appreciate your support. Fire Lyle already. And then he says, Lyle so bad, Sunil. Sunil now has gray hair after 2024. Nice. Well done. Well done. All right, let me ask you this. And I think this has been a topic, and maybe we need to define this because I've hear a lot of things thrown around. Is this a full rebuild? Is it a retool? And what is the difference? What do you think the 49ers are doing right now? Is this a full-on rebuild in your eyes? Is this a retool? Like what is this, and how do you define this?
Yeah. I mean, I think like a full on rebuild would be they're trading away Bosa, they're trading away Kittle, they're trading away CMC. Like you're getting rid of all of your older talent that isn't going to be around when you're going to be competitive, right? You're trying to
Mhm.
just get as many top draft picks as possible, and your whole core is going to be new young rookies. So I think this is more of a retool because they are holding on to CMC. They are holding on to Nick Bosa, right? They still have, to our knowledge, they're going to build around Brandon Ayuk, Jennings. Like, so they still have like a core there of older players that they're still holding on to that they feel like, hey, we're a year away from, getting back to being extremely competitive. And you guys are going to be useful to that competitiveness. So that's what I think this is more of a retool. I think that they have to be really, really good in the draft this year, Jesse, just like they were last year, where, 80%, 70, 80% of the draft picks have to be guys that could come in and impact, within the first year, if not at least the second year. Um, yeah, and like you mentioned, I think that once they develop those stars again, which look, this regime's been able to do, right? All of this, most of the stars that were our core were homegrown, right? So they know how to do it. It's just they have to do it again, right? All of these guys kind of got long in the tooth. They got, where you're paying more for them, than they're producing. They need to reverse that again, where they're getting a lot more out of the guys than what they're paying, and that's the only way you do that is through drafting really well. So I think they're just retooling with that, still have the core there that can still be really competitive, and bring in some young guys to fill out the rest of the roster that can turn into the next all pros, the next, pro bowlers that this team has been able to find in the draft consistently.
Ryan Clark said today on his show that the 49ers should just go all in and they should trade guys like Christian McCaffrey. And then Greg Papa was on the radio a couple hours ago and said, well, I'm not saying they're going to trade Christian, but I think they're listening to all options. If they start selling off the Christians, the Kittles, the Trents, the Ayuks, then it does start to turn into a rebuild process. Golden State Niner says, what's the difference? To me, I define a rebuild when you're stripping it down to the studs. So think about it like a house. You have a couple options. You can do a rebuild, which to me is either like you're breaking down the whole house and rebuilding from scratch, or at least you're ripping it down to the studs, drywall and everything, and you're rerunning electrical, you're redoing plumbing, you're doing everything. A retool in a house is like a remodel where it's like, well, we're gonna do a couple bathrooms and maybe the floors, something like that. When you look at an NFL franchise, a rebuild to me is like Kyle's gone, John Lynch is gone, possibly the quarterback's gone. We're stripping it down to the studs, and we're just a whole new regime, a whole new philosophy, and we're moving on. Or if you keep those guys, if you keep Kyle and you keep John, then you're getting rid of the Kittles, the Trents, the CMCs, the Ayuks, the Purdy's. So one of those two things or both of those things have to happen in order for it to be a full rebuild. A retool is, hey, we're going to have potentially a down year, but we expect to be fully back by next year with the same regime at hand. And that's what I think they're trying to do right now. And so to me, that is the difference. That's how I would classify it. And I agree. I don't think they're in a full-on rebuild, at least not yet. It doesn't feel that way. I think it's a retool, and I think it's the right move. I don't think they need a full rebuild. I think they need to be flexible, build towards the future. And as long as Kyle and Brock can show that they're worth it, then they can stick around and be the reason and in who you build around. So I think that's what's exciting about this year is that we're going to find out a little bit more about those guys.
And there's some people in the chat saying, well, what team actually does full rebuild? You can't get rid of everybody. Well, we have seen, I mean, when the Raiders got rid of Khalil Mack and Amari Toomer, when you're getting rid of your two best players and going for draft picks to get younger and, build a new regime, things like that. We just saw Houston, right? When they got rid of Deshaun Watson, got rid of, the receiver, Hopkins, and then they built through the draft with CJ Stroud and Will Anderson and things like that. It
and
happens.
Had a new coaching staff, new GM, everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So there's teams that do it. Usually good teams don't do it, right? So that's why you don't see, it's usually bad teams that are having to completely rebuild. That's why, and one of the other tweets that I've been big about, and I think that Kyle Shanahan gets a lot of blame, and obviously rightfully so. He's the face of the team. I think there's not enough pressure on John Lynch, and what I mean by that, Jesse, is like you look at the teams that are consistently really good in this league, and the two cream of the crop, I would say, over the last 5 to 8 years have been obviously the Kansas City Chiefs with Veach and the Eagles with Howie Roseman.
Yeah,
you don't see these years where they're decimated and they can't compete because of injuries. You don't see them be like completely bare of talent, right? You don't see them like miss a bunch of times with high draft picks. They're hitting with their draft picks. They're getting off of guys before they're too old and they're overpaying them.
I'd add Les Snead from the Rams into this too. Yeah, I think he does a great job as well.
Yeah, I mean, but I'm talking about guys that have won regimes that have won multiple Super Bowls in this time frame, and they are constantly there. So,
Yeah.
like, the 49ers have every ability to be the same way as those teams. However, they just choose the philosophy is different when it comes to personnel, right? They miss a lot in the top draft picks, right? And that hurts a lot. They tend to go old and unhealthy versus younger and things of that nature. And so yeah, I think there needs to be a lot of pressure on John Lynch to be like, look, Howie Roseman's over here in our conference doing it the way that we should be doing it. Veach over there in Kansas City is doing it the way we should be doing it. We have all the resources to do it the same way. We need to be running our team that way. And I think that hopefully Jed York or whoever's the leader is saying that, look, we need to change our philosophy to be run more like these organizations that are constantly winning Super Bowls.
Yeah, I love it. Dave says, Jess, do you think Dave's Daily Takes is a good idea? He's talking about on his channel. Yeah, dude. I think when you're early on in making content, just play around, mess around, and whatever you land on, whatever you're comfortable with, like that's when you niche down and stick with it. But I think early on, just have fun, man. He says they'll mostly be short and funny and maybe factual. Yeah, dude, just have fun with it. There's no reason to like, I don't know, be uptight about it. Just make content. Cliff says, do we have enough draft picks to fill all the holes? Technically, yes, you have enough draft picks, but reality is you're not going to hit on all 11 players. There's like 10 holes on this team, maybe 11 that you need to fill. So if you go 11 for 11, sure. And you draft those positions and all those players are great. Yes, that's not reality. So no, the answer is no, just based on reality. But technicality is sure. Technically, you could, yes.
Yeah, and you don't need to have all pros at every single position
No,
to
not
win
at all.
either. Like
No.
they just need to hit on their, for top 3 rounds. They need to get better at hitting in the first round and the second round, Jesse. That's like the blatant hole, which is what's held this. The reason why we're here is because of how bad this organization has been drafting in the first round, right? That's something that I think gets glossed over quite a bit because they do so well in 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th rounds to get, impact players. So it kind of makes up for it. But, it's if they could hit in the first round, first, second rounds, and continue to hit in the 4th, 5th, 6th rounds, 7th rounds, now you're talking about we're elite year after year after year without these issues where we're holding on to guys too long because we haven't replaced them in the draft.
This is an interesting comment. Sean says, you can't put more pressure on Lynch because he was hired by Kyle. If he had hired Kyle, sure. Kyle has had his way within the roster and paid his friends. What do you think of
And
that?
this is something where I think this narrative is fan fiction. This has been created by fans and content creators. Nobody in the organization says this. The people that I have talked to that are close in the organization say the complete opposite from what this is. And anybody that says this is the way that it is not going off of something that they've heard from inside the organization, is going off of what they feel because Kyle Shanahan was hired first. And obviously they picked a GM that they felt like they could work well with and stuff like that. But as far as personnel decisions, as far as who makes the decisions on who to pay, all that kind of stuff, I think that this is just a narrative that's created because, there's a backlash against Shanahan and the way he treats the media.
I think we need to go back to when he was hired because I actually agree with Sean here. Listen, here's the quote from John Lynch. He says, I was missing the competition in the scoreboard. Kyle Shanahan took the 49ers job and I cold called him to see if he'd consider me to be his GM. Lynch explained that Shanahan was surprised by his call, but he was so impressed that he called him back and offered him the GM position. That's a direct quote from
Sure,
Lynch.
but we
He
can't.
was offered the position by
So we
Kyle.
can't sit here and be like John Lynch speaks in hyperbole, but then when it comes to a quote that is like, "Oh, he Kyle Shanahan hired me," like that's not John Lynch doing what he does, which is just try to downplay himself and big up everybody around him. That's just what John Lynch does. Is that reality though? Jesse, do you think that Kyle Shanahan was like, "Here, let me sign this check that hires you to that"? Come on, man. Like that's not what
No,
that's
I think Jed said, "Hey, you're our coach, and who would you work well with? You tell me who you want to work with." And then that's who they went with, which
sure.
is that's who he chose, is Kyle
But
Shanahan. I
why
mean, he
where's
chose
the
John
power
Lynch.
dynamic there? Like, that to me is like, okay, yeah, we work
Well,
well together, but a GM is still a GM, right? Like,
kind of. So here, I'll tell you, because I remember the first presser and how everything went down. So in the first press conference, when they were both hired, they did their press conference together. And there, Matt Mayoko, I think, was the one that asked the question. He asked about who makes the personnel decisions? And John said, um, I make the 90-man roster. He chooses the final 53, right? Which that's normal. That's like,
mhm.
okay, yeah, I bring in the players, you do 53. And then there was a follow-up question. So it's strictly you drafting the players and doing the 90-man. He's like, well, contractually, um, Kyle Kyle's involved in everything. But it's a collaboration,
Every
is what
coach,
he said. But he did say contractually, Kyle actually does have say so in everything. That was literally his words. Contractually,
I
he
could tell
has
you,
say so in the
Jesse,
90-man.
there's somebody that we both know that's
Mhm.
very tied in
Yeah,
to the team. That if you asked him what you're talking about right now, will tell you you're flat wrong.
he will. And I love him, and I think I usually take what he says as gospel because it ends up he's pretty much right every single time. Um, but there are some contradictory points to this, and we've had conversations about it. So, anyways, he knows I love him. All right, either way. Cliff 5 Super Bowl says Purdy contract. Make him play next year, franchise tag him for 2 years, draft a quarterback, stop the Trey Lance stuff. If his price is right, thanks for the entertainment. I appreciate you. Thanks for the entertainment on this comment. But this does actually bring us to our next topic, which is what the hell's taking so long with this Purdy contract? I mean, when the season ended, everybody said, "Oh, this is the easiest contract the 49ers are ever going to have to make. The market is set. Everybody knows what it is." A lot of people were like, "This thing's going to be done in I can't wait till March because I know it's going to be done by then. This is easy peasy." And now everybody that discusses it that is supposedly in the know all of a sudden is like, "Well, it's nothing imminent." And I think the earliest we're looking at is May. What the hell, man? Like this a year ago, at the owners meeting. So the end of March last year, it was like, "Oh, we're down to pay Brock. It's for sure going to happen. We love this guy." And then a year later, it's like, "Well, yeah, I mean, we would love to come to an agreement, but the player agreement, the CBA means that we can keep him for a couple years if that's the route we have to take. And we want to make a deal, but nothing's imminent." Like, what is going on?
Yeah, I think it goes back to who made the decision that this is the off season that we're gonna have. I don't think it was Lynch. And I think that whomever made the decision is telling them no more bad contracts. And so the only way this contract gets done early, Jesse, is if it's a bad contract by the people who think that Purdy shouldn't be paid 55, 60 million dollars per year, right? People that think that that's a bad contract. I think that ultimately the 49ers have leverage here. They don't need to pay Purdy. They don't they still have him under contract. And after this, they still have the franchise tag and all that kind of stuff. They could do what, Washington had done with Kirk Cousins all that time, right? Where they didn't want to get into him for long-term money, but they kept keeping him there, keeping him there, keeping him there. Yeah, I think that the team doesn't want to overpay They have a number in their head that they're comfortable with. And I think they've lost, quote unquote, Jesse, in all of these negotiations over the last 6 years, right? They've waited trying to hold to what they are, and then either Kyle or Lynch or whomever just kind of buckles. And I think Parag's in charge right now, and we know Parag doesn't buckle. So he's gonna stick to his number. And I think this does. I don't think this gets done anytime soon.
Let me ask you this. Put a percentage on it. I love putting percentages on
Yeah.
things. You know this. So percentage, 3 options. Percentage he gets traded. Obviously, it has to add up to 100. So get your mathematician hat out.
Yeah.
Percentage he gets traded. Percentage he signs a new deal, and percentage that they make him ride out his final year.
I would go 10% he gets traded.
Okay. Wow, that's high,
50%,
actually.
50% he signs, 40% he plays out this year on the contract he has.
Wow. Okay. You say so 10, 50, 40?
Yeah.
I'll go 2% he's traded. 68% that he gets a new deal, and 30% that they make him write it out.
Yeah.
I was like, how do I get to 100? What do I do?
I mean, I think
yeah.
that ultimately what they do with Purdy is gonna give us the most insight into how they feel about Kyle and Lynch. Right? If they if they sign Purdy to a long-term deal, that they probably ride with Kyle. Because once again, now you're limiting your options, right? Now all of a sudden, maybe the top coach doesn't believe in Purdy and doesn't want to come to the team if Purdy's there long term, right? So yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of decisions there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to giving Purdy the money that some people are just saying they should give him.
Yeah, for sure. I think there is a lot of moving parts. It's just crazy, the conversation and the way it's being discussed, not only by, John Lynch, because John Lynch, I remember when at the combine, he had said what he had said. And the first part he said, hey, we want to get it done. They want to get it done. We want Brock to be here for as long as we are and even longer. And everybody took that quote and ran with it. And then all the aggregators forgot the next part, which was, yeah, but there's no guarantee we get a deal done. Everybody left that out. So if you didn't personally watch it yourself, you didn't see that part. And then what's funny, though, is everybody for the next couple weeks, the Schefters, the Rappaports, the Diana Rossinis, the Kawakamis, the Silvers, they actually dug in and did some digging themselves. And more so than anything, that little part that all the aggregators left out is what they're talking about. And that's what kind of blew my mind. It was like, oh, that wasn't just a throwaway comment. They're all saying this is a real possibility. That's what kind of shook me a little bit. I'm like, there's no way, right? But that's what they've all been saying. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, it makes sense. Them signing Purdy to a big deal right away completely is opposite of everything else that they've been doing, right? All of the people that they've brought in have been on, for the most part, short-term team-friendly deals.
Yeah.
Right? They're not long-term money tied in and all that kind of stuff. They haven't done their normal restructuring a bunch of contracts like they usually do. So, I mean, what more I guess what more indicators do we need that they're being very resourceful and they don't want they don't want a bad contract anymore. So, I think that's just what the signs are showing.
Let's do another percentage. So let's assume a deal gets done. Let's not talk money, right? Because money, the only thing you can talk is AAV, which is so surface level. I mean, it's really in how it's structured. But I think years will tell us a lot. So give me the percentage on a 3-year extension, 4-year extension, 5-year extension, assuming it gets done. Which Like, where do you think that deal's going to fall?
So, and you're talking about outs, right? Out after
No,
3
no,
years.
no, no. I'm not saying the out. I think the out will be after 2 years, which is traditionally what they do. But like Tua, for example, I think
Not
got a
for
4-year
quarterbacks,
deal.
though. So that's the thing with quarterbacks, you tend to go through the life of a contract for a quarterback, right?
You
Like that.
do, but there's an out, usually an out built into everything. So I think Tua's out was after 2 years. I think Lawrence's out was after 2 years. Jordan Love's is after 3 years.
Mhm.
But some of those guys signed 4-year contracts. Some of those guys signed 5-year contracts. The only guys that signed 3-year contracts are like the Sam Darnolds, the Baker Mayfields before they realized like Baker's actually kind of good. But most of those guys, like the franchise guys, they got 4 and 5-year deals. I have a feeling Brock's only going to get a 3-year deal. Like I don't know why. Like I really think that that's a big
That's
possibility.
that's why I had such a high percentage that he just plays out what he has right now.
Mm.
Is because I don't think that the team
He
wants to
doesn't
give
want.
him the team doesn't want to give him a 5-year deal, but if he's smart, he's not trying to sign a 3-year deal. You know what I mean? Like you
Yeah.
sign the longest deal that you can to give yourself, the most money and the most security that you can. Um, I think that's I think that they're not. I think that that's what the biggest issue is. It's probably not so much AAV because I think that you just saw uh what's your guy in Buffalo, Josh Allen.
Josh Allen.
He's coming 55 million. Like, what's Purdy gonna say that he's like he should get more money than what Allen is getting? But I think it's the years, and I don't think that the 49ers want to give him a 5-year deal, and I don't think that Purdy and his agent want to settle for a 3-year deal. So that's probably more
Yeah.
what the sticking point is.
I actually tend to agree with you. I think that's exactly the sticking point. 1A7 says, when do these big deals get done? Yeah, I agree with you. I think, but Jimmy Garoppolo is the only quarterback that they've redone, and that was immediate. And you're of all people, you're the one that was like, I can't wait till March comes around. It's gonna get done, and you're gonna look stupid. Like, first of all, I never said it wouldn't get done, but you're the one that was telling everybody it was gonna happen in March, and here we are. So if all the deals get done in June, July, August, then that's where you should have went. But you said March, and you said March. I can't wait till March is here because you're gonna like, okay, well here we are, and it doesn't sound like it's gonna happen in March. So
Well-run teams get these deals done early.
yeah, that's true. Sean says, remember when everyone said that the market is the market? Trade him. Why pay him for to underperform on a less talented team? We saw that this year. If they pay him and he looks bad on this team, then they look dumb. And then he clarifies they would look dumb. Bad optics. Yeah, dude, I get you. And I think that's what's so hard about the Brock Purdy thing is it's like, say what you want, okay? And I am like the first one to tell you that I will take Brock Purdy 11 times out of 10 compared to Tua Tagovailoa. Like I would. But when Tua got his deal, for example, he was coming off of a really good season, like arguably his best season. When Jordan Love got his deal, he was coming off of like a 12-game heater. And we only saw, 19 games of him. But 12 of those games were legit, and that's what he was coming off of. They didn't really have a choice. Dak was coming off of a heater of a season where he was, damn near MVP. Most of these guys, when they get paid, they're coming off the top of the top. Brock Purdy, that was a season ago. If he was getting paid a season ago, this would be done. It would have been done already. Like the market, that's all real. It would have been done, I believe. But the fact that he's not coming off of that season and he's coming off of a down season, that's what makes this thing so interesting and so tough because he's not. The market is the market when you're coming off of an elite season.
Right.
He's not coming off that elite season. So if the market's the market, that's when the 49ers really can be like, well, we could give you the Daniel Jones, the Baker Mayfield, the Sam Darnold deal. That's what we're looking at. You didn't have the best year, Brock. And his agent's going, yeah, but we went to a Super Bowl and an NFC championship. They're like, that was 2 years ago. We're paying you right now. And the last thing we saw was 6-11, my G. So good luck with that. So that's why this thing is complicated, because it is different than those other deals.
And the 49ers have been burnt every year from 1 year wonders, right? They feel like they got burned on the Debo contract. They feel like they got burned on the Javon Hargrave contract. They feel like they got burnt on the Brandon Ayuk contract, right? So once again, all of the indicators are that they're tired of these bad contracts in their eyes, whether they're good or bad. Obviously, that's debatable, but in their eyes, it looks like these are bad contracts, which is why they're either gotten off of them or there's been discussions to get off of them. Um, I, I don't think I think that they're like, hey, Brock, you got to show us more than 1 year, because we see that 1 year can be a fluke. What are you got to play this year, show us you can do it, or take what we value you at right now if you want that security right now at a 3 year deal or whatever. And I think that's what the sticking points are.
All day, every day, Kim says, Brock can't throw a wet ball. Why pay him? I don't. Right. Dean says, trade Brock and 11 to the Giants for number 4. Might as well. Yeah, I don't know. I really, I haven't done. I keep saying I'm going to watch these quarterbacks, and I always end up doing it like a week before the draft. I'll just binge watch them. But when we're not drafting a quarterback, I'm just like, oh, whatever. I don't care. Dave says, Kim contract got wet and Brick dropped it. Sucks. He's saying that the contract was wet and then Brock dropped it. All right, chill out. All right, let's pivot to the final topic here. So, believe it or not, Sunil, and I know you believe it because you're the one that sent it to me, but the betting odds have the 49ers as the favorite still at this moment to win the NFC West.
Right.
And the third best odds to win the NFC period, and the sixth best odds to win a Super Bowl out of all the teams in the NFL. That is crazy to me. Absolutely crazy. What do you make of this? Do you agree with them? And I think a way to do it is, let's just go through. I did this exercise yesterday, but we'll take each thing by each thing. All right. NFC West. Do you feel like they should be the betting favorite to win the NFC West?
So betting favorite's kind of tough, right? Because they're trying to play the odds where they can win the most money, right? So they're feeling like people are going to feel like the 49ers are the best. Personally, I think that the Rams should be the favorite. But I can see where I think the 49ers on a last place schedule, Kyle Shanahan, I think like all of the years we've kind of made it to the Super Bowl have been on the last place schedule, right? Or I guess the last Super Bowl we weren't on a last place schedule, but I know in 2019 it was coming off the last place schedule. So yeah, I mean, I think that I could see why the betting odds would be there, because the 49ers are going to have the easiest schedule, quote unquote.
I think the Rams are the clear best team in the NFC West. Like, I don't think it's even. I don't think that it's close at this point. So I would go with the Rams. What about third best team in the NFC? Like, where would you rank? And again, this is all on paper. This is before a draft, by the way.
Yeah.
But where would you rank?
The Eagles are probably the cream of the crop. Yeah. I would put the Rams at 2.
Okay.
People would put Detroit, but Detroit lost both of their coordinators, and we saw what happened to the Eagles when they lost both of their coordinators, right? And if you don't replace them with the right coordinators, then you can fall off pretty significantly as well. So I don't know, but I would say roster wise, you would have to put Detroit there at 3. Yeah, I mean, I think that the 49ers could be 4, 5, 6, depending.
Breaking news. The San Francisco 49ers have agreed to terms on a 2-year deal with Mac Jones.
Let the QB controversy begin.
No way, dude. Oh, this is so bro. This is funny. Let's think about this. Let's go back to the 2021 draft for just
Yep.
a second. So the Jets, the Jets had a chance to draft Justin Fields. They drafted Zach Wilson. Now Justin Fields is in the building.
Yep.
The 49ers had a chance to draft Mac Jones. They drafted Trey Lance, and now Mac Jones is in the building. This is
Yep.
actually very, very funny. And I want to say this. This is a conversation. I hope he doesn't mind that I bring this up. But Vish, everybody should know Vish. He and I have had this conversation many times over the phone. I don't know if we've ever done it on air, but over the phone, we've had this conversation many times. And we both agree. We both agree. What's up, Jake? I see you. That if Mac Jones had been drafted by the 49ers, 49er fans would love Mac Jones.
Yep.
Mac Jones would have been the savior. He would have been like all the stuff that is being said about Purdy and oh my gosh, he's the franchise and all the things that it's been said about Jimmy G and all that, they would have been said about Mac Jones too. I genuinely think Mac Jones in this system with Kyle and that team, people would have thought he was the second coming. I really believe that. But because he got put in a bad situation on a bad team, he isn't that guy and he can't carry. And people know what he is before he's now on this team. But if Mac Jones has to play, make no mistakes about it, people will think like, oh my gosh, like he finally figured it out. And it's like, no, Kyle Shanahan knows how to make it work with these types of guys.
Right. So do you read anything into this move? Or is this just solidifying the backup QB spot because you needed a backup QB?
Yeah, listen, when it comes to Brock Purdy, I don't read anything into it. Like I think that's kind of where you're going. I don't read into
I mean, I guess we got to see
anything
what
as
the
far as
numbers are, right?
it's 2 years, $7 million with 5 million guaranteed, max value of 11.5 million.
Yeah, so it's a backup contract.
It's a backup contract for sure.
Mhm.
For sure. So I don't read into it anything when it comes to Brock necessarily, no.
Yeah.
But I will tell you this. Brock better stay healthy. Brock misses 4 or 5 games, he might F around and find out. I'm telling you right now.
Well, I mean, that's where
and this is coming from a guy that doesn't like Mac Jones, never liked Mac Jones. I just know Mac Jones in this system is tailor-made for him to flourish.
Right.
It just is.
Right. Yeah, but I mean, I think this is even more that Purdy wants that kind of like what's it called? Security that hey, if you got to give me the years so I know that you're investing in me type of thing. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, I think what everybody thought, remember all of those you were kind of mentioning, but even last year, like there was all of this, hey, this isn't going to be a tenacious negotiation. It seems like both sides want to be here and all that. Obviously, that's not what it is.
Absolutely crazy, man. This is really funny. This is really funny. All right, let's get back to the conversation at hand. So, teams better in the NFC. You have
Eagles 1, Rams probably 2, Detroit probably 3. Minnesota's tough to say, right? Who's playing quarterback there?
Right.
The Bears obviously have new offense, but like, look, I think everybody likes the coach there and Ben Johnson, and who knows what Caleb Williams is going to be like behind that. But still, a rookie quarterback, you don't know. Green Bay, still hasn't proven that they could get over the hump. So I think like the 49ers fall into that next tier, right? After those top 3 teams, the 49ers could be like, look, if CMC is healthy, Jesse, all bets are off on what the 49ers can do, right? Like CMC healthy and Fred Warner healthy.
Not just healthy, but like back to his old form. Like he can be healthy, but he's got to be like CMC, not just healthy.
Sure.
Right?
And I mean, they get Jordan Mason back healthy, like, and they start kind of using both of them, like the thing that gives me some kind of hope is not some kind of hope. I always have faith, but like Kyle Shanahan is going to be able to just focus on offense, right? He has his defense. He has a defensive coordinator that he trusts. He has a defensive coordinator that knows how to run. It has the leadership ability to be a head coach. All of these types of things. Like there's no question marks in their coaching staff, and they haven't had this type of coaching staff since D'Amico Ryans was the defensive coordinator, right? Where there's just zero question marks, right? They have upgraded special teams coach, upgraded defensive coordinator. Kyle Shanahan could just focus on X's and O's. So if he gets his weapons back with CMC, with Brandon Ayuk eventually getting healthy, obviously Jennings has taken a step forward. I think Robinson's going to be a great receiver in this system, as well as if Pearsall takes the next leap. Like I think the offense is going to be humming again, right? And so yeah, I think that once this offense is humming and they can put up points, Salah will get the defense to where it needs to be. Like, I mean, I don't think people want to play. I don't think that people are excited to play the 49ers. Like, I think that they know that they could be beat by the 49ers at any. I don't think there's a team that goes in there, plays the 49ers. They're like, we're definitely better than these guys. Like, so yeah, I mean, I think that they're absolutely could be up there with the top three, but most likely within that 4 to 6 range, I think is pretty safe that they could fall into that as long as everybody's healthy.
Yeah, I think on paper I've got them like around 8 or so. But now that Mac Jones is here, all bets are off, brother. Like best team in the NFC
Who are the
right
7
now.
teams you have ahead of them?
I had, let me try to remember. So I had the Eagles, the Bills,
Oh,
the
you're talking about full NFL. I thought we were talking.
I mean, no, not the Bills. Sorry, NFC. The Eagles, the Lion, no order. Eagles, Lions, Rams, Commanders, Vikings.
Tampa Bay.
Packers, Bears, Tampa. So like 8 or 9 in that area.
So you already putting the Bears up there ahead of the 49ers.
With that roster, I mean, I think that they just win. Yes. I mean, that offensive line is the problem is right now the 49ers don't have an offensive or a defensive line. They just don't. And right now the Bears have both, and that's tough.
I mean,
so you give me a draft, obviously you give me a draft and they crush it, then I might change my mind. But in this moment before a draft,
different from this offensive line that wasn't in the that's the offensive line that made it to a Super Bowl 2 years ago. They just lost Banks. Is Banks that much better than Bart? I don't know. Like that's where it's kind of like, okay.
But it's a mid at best offensive line. You know what I mean?
Like, I mean, mid took him to the Super Bowl though.
I gotcha, but that was also on the back of an elite defense.
True, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So, can the defense get back to elite with the the right defensive coordinator? That's what I'm saying. These are all ifs, right? But
well, for sure, after the draft, we're gonna have a real big. We'll know, right? Yeah. Like we'll feel one way or another. And I know this is a very, very early to have this conversation. That's why I'm not gonna like hold you to this. Be like, remember in March you said. I just wanted to see what your thoughts were right now. So, all right. All day, every day. Kim says the market is BS. He'll get paid and fail. Gammon says when a player gets a tender, are they a tenderoni? Potentially, yes. All day, every day. Kim says the 49ers are a part of the easy schedule, right? So he's saying when teams look at the 49ers, they're on the easy schedule. I'm like, I don't know about that. Return of the Mac. Watch out, Brock. That's actually good. I was thinking back then they didn't want me, but now I'm hot. Hose all on me. Mac Jones. All right. Cliff 5 Super Bowl says you were giving it to me over Trey cheese. For sure. Dave says, I love Mac. Cheaper than Brick for $1. And then he says, but I hated Mac before I seen Brick play. Go figure. Yeah, I'm not the biggest Mac Jones fan, but I don't know. They're roughly the same-ish. All day, every day, Kim says, the key is it's not 1 year. I don't know exactly what he's talking about. Down year?
About the Mac Jones deal.
Oh, I got you. Yeah, 2 year. That's a good call. Right now on this team, $7 million is starting quarterback pay. Yeah, that's true. That is very true. We're not paying quarterbacks a lot of money right now. And Refugio says, Mac Jones, laugh out loud. Yeah, man, this is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. Yeah, no, I'm sure he will. I'm sure he's got spreadsheets ready for this. He's all ready to rock. Listen, I didn't
Is there
expect Mac
any
Jones
more
to
of
use
a
my profiles.
comical? I know you're not really into Twitter beefs, but Lombardi has been doing some fantastic work when it comes to spin. Like, man, it's elite what he's able to do as far as just make everything a positive spin. Got to give it to him.
Yeah, I mean, listen, what's crazy is I mean, I don't know what he's saying or not saying right now, but like I genuinely like the direction of what the 49ers are doing. I think it's a year late, and so I'm gonna dock them a little bit for that. But as far as what they're doing, I love Brock. Lombardi, though, somehow is probably like, well, with these moves, the 49ers are not only the best team in the NFL still, but they're also setting themselves up for the future. And I think that's the difference. I'm like, I think they can make the playoffs. I genuinely do. If they do well in this draft, but I don't think they're Super Bowl contenders while also retooling on the fly. I think next year they could be, but this year, no. Even if they knock the draft out of the park, it's like you might win a game in the playoffs, and I'm totally okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, he's probably like, yeah, dude. Oh, they're winning the Super Bowl. Okay. Daza says feels like Parag and Jed aren't fully sold on Brock. Here's the thing. I don't know that they are or are not. I don't know how anybody can be fully sold on Brock based off of the samples that we've seen. How? Based off of what, man? We've had 45 of his career has been meh. I don't know how you can be sold on that. Like I don't care. You give me your QBR and your EPAs and your CPOEs and your DVO, whatever, all that garbage. My eyes tell me he's been mid for 45% of his career. So I don't know how anybody can be sold on that.
And to be honest, like it's hard. Like how many quarterbacks are anybody could be fully sold on, right? Like Tua's you look at Trevor Lawrence, like it's hard to be a quarterback in this league at an elite level. That's why there's only a handful. And even everybody was fully sold on CJ Stroud after his rookie season, and he had his second year. So
CJ Stroud, who Jaden Daniels. You can't be fully sold on Jaden Daniels. Like that was arguably the best rookie year we've ever seen. Kudos to you.
Mm-hmm.
It's 1 year. 1 year. Like, no, I'm not. Now if I'm projecting, I think I'm gonna project him to be a good quarterback, but that can easily change.
Sure.
Right? Like with more information, you can change your mind. But Jaden Daniels, like if I'm making a top 10 list for next year, yes, of course he's going to be up there.
But if you ask
that can change quickly,
to give him $65 million contract,
I wouldn't do it.
Not going to do it.
I wouldn't do it. Yeah. Listen, if Jaden Daniels was on this team and had the 1 year and you're like, hey, you got to pay Jaden, I'd be like, absolutely not. What are we talking about? No, let him play out his contract. No.
Right.
So
for sure. And I think that's where kind of perspective comes in. You might not be fully sold on Purdy, but I do think that they think that Purdy is the best option, but at a certain price point with a certain amount of years.
Yeah. Yep. Dave says next Kirk and all Lyle's dreams will come true. Nice. Could you imagine they signed Kirk Cousins right after this? Like, I got you all now.
Atlanta's holding on to Kirk, man. They like Kirk.
That's so weird, right? No, there's like nobody in their right mind thought that they would hang on to Kirk Cousins. Like, you got to get rid of Kirk Cousins. Like, you don't have a choice here.
They're like, nah, we just gonna pay him like he's a starter and keep him as our backup.
Yeah, exactly. All right, y'all. Listen, there's 700 of you watching between Twitter and YouTube. I appreciate all of you for contributing in the chat, watching, liking the video, super chats, all of it. Much love. Make sure you check out the sponsor of the show, Underdog. You can play more or lesses, daily fantasy, weekly fantasy, whatever it is. They've got you covered in all sports. Links in the description. Promo code LSS will get you your deposit match of up to $1,000 plus your one free play. So Neil, thank you for joining me. I don't know if you'll be able to do a show next week, but after that, I'm out for a couple weeks. I'll be in Bora Bora, baby. I can't wait for that. So I won't be around much longer myself. I'll be taking a couple weeks off, but hopefully we can get a show in next week, depending on whatever your agenda is or travel schedule is for next week. We'll talk about it. But yeah, that's it. Mac Jones, he's a 49er. Can't believe it. Peace.